Hello. Thanks for tuning in to the Bargaining Town Hall meeting in a virtual format. My name is Betsy Reger, and I'm the Executive Director of the Clay County Education Association and one of the chief negotiators for your bargaining team. We wanted to get this information out to all of our members as widely as possible. And before I begin, I'd like to tell you that the information that we're about to share is not necessarily good news. And while it is not good news, I don't want you to feel hopeless, because there are avenues and actions that we can take to improve our situation. But I do want to give you a realistic expectation of what's coming in bargaining and where the challenges are and where they're coming from. Although the news is not great, we do want you to understand that the district and board's bargaining teams, as well as your CCEA bargaining team, are committed to getting the very best deal that we possibly can, and that the restrictions that are coming from Tallahassee are what is making it difficult for us to do that. So when you hear this news and you become angry or disillusioned, please remember that we are going to give you some suggestions at the end of this to help channel that in a way that could help us make some positive change going forward. So first off, welcome to teaching, where the salaries are low and everything is your fault. That should set the tone for the news we're about to share. I want to sort of give you an overview of where we have been in bargaining and how we got where we are now. So we'll talk a little bit about prior to 2011 and then the last 10 years. And finally, where we are today. So let's look back at bargaining in 2010. In 2010, there was exactly one law that governed how teacher salaries were paid, and it was found in the Constitution of Florida in Chapter 447, and it was the right for public sector unions, including ours, the teachers union, to fight to collectively bargain for our salaries. So that was the only law. It was the district and the union could negotiate to come up with salaries that met each community's needs. At that time, Florida's average teacher salary was $46,462, and we ranked 39th in the nation in teacher pay. Not great, but not the bottom. And another important thing that was possible before the law changed in 2011 was that teachers could receive a professional services contract, a PSC, after 3 years of service to one district. And about 36% of our teachers now in Clay County do have a PSC contract. And if they didn't have that contract by 2011, they were never going to get one. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. So what changed in 2011? The Florida legislature passed Senate Bill 736, and those of you who have your professional services contract and have been here for more than 10 years probably remember this. It created two salary schedules and required districts and unions to negotiate and enact performance pay based on teacher evaluation. And also required that the teacher evaluations had to be at least 50% made up of student performance on standardized tests. That language still remains to this day, but the percentage has changed. It's 33.33% now. So now it's 66%. Your evaluators portion of the evaluation instrument, and then the other 33% is student growth or student performance. And any teacher, and this is what I told you, we go back to this, any teacher who was not already on a professional services contract by June 30th, 2011 would forever remain on annual contract, forever and ever, amen, subject to non-renewal at the end of every school year. So no more job security. One of the things that was sort of a misunderstanding in the public was that once teachers got that professional services contract, they could never be fired by a district. And that was simply not true. It was absolutely possible and necessary to fire teachers who had performance issues, who had disciplinary issues, or even could be laid off due to budget concerns. But there was protection and due process guaranteed to teachers that they would work year after year, so long as they remained effective teachers, so long as they didn't have disciplinary issues, and so long as the budget supported it. But in 2011, the law changed and we lost that right to the professional services contract. So anyone hired pretty much after August of 2007, so for that 2007-2008 school year, anyone that was hired after that would be on annual contract because they wouldn't have completed the 3 years by June 30th, 2011. So the rules that govern performance pay in 2011 were as follows. The teachers on professional services contracts would remain on the grandfathered salary schedule, and that was a new salary schedule created in the legislature that year. And annual contract teachers are placed on a base salary and then receive performance pay adjustments every year. At this time, the language stated that the adjustments for highly effective teachers on performance pay, so those annual contract highly effective teachers, had to be more than any adjustment that was available on the grandfathered salary schedule. So if the grandfathered salary schedule had the largest step was $800, the largest increase was $800, then the annual contract highly effective teachers had to receive, and the language was more than the $800. The adjustment for effective teachers on the performance pay salary schedule had to be 50 to 75% of the highly effective adjustment. And that language still stands today. Also, there was cost of living allowances available and legal, but they could only be 50% of the effective adjustment. So if you had an adjustment of $1,000 for a highly effective annual contract teacher, then your adjustment for effective teachers could be $500 to $750, and a COLA could be half of that, but that would go to everyone. And so how did we react to these changes? How did districts and unions react? Well, for the most part, we agreed across the state that these were really, really bad ideas. And for my primary teachers, we'll, recognize Alexander having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. And that's pretty much the way that we all felt about the new changes to the law in 2011. So what did we do? Across the state, unions and districts worked together, and we came up with creative ideas that followed the law, but lessened that negative experience, the impact on the teachers as much as we could. We came up with great ideas like automatic renewals for annual contract teachers with effective or highly effective ratings. This was negotiated in most of the counties in the state of Florida, and a few years later was made illegal by the legislature. Actually, the year that we negotiated it in Clay, the very next year, the Florida legislature made it illegal for school boards to offer any sort of automatic renewal for any teacher for any reason. Many districts came up with one salary schedule for everyone, avoiding that grandfathered versus performance pay issue. If you didn't have a grandfathered salary schedule and only had the performance pay, then you had a lot more flexibility, and there wasn't that pitting of annual contract teachers against professional services contract teachers. This was one that a lot of folks did. We said, okay, performance pay is $1. It has to be more than whatever we can give our grandfathered teachers. Then it'll be $1 more. So if you had an $800 increase on the grandfathered salary schedule, then highly effective teachers got $801, and effective teachers would get $800.75, and everything else would be equal. So that helped a lot over the years in fixing what was trying to be a gap. Came up with longevity supplements. Longevity supplements were supplements that were taken off of the salary schedule because the law only spoke to the salary schedules, and you could take a longevity supplement, put it to the side, and award it to teachers for years of experience. So a lot of our step schedules had really big steps on them, like some of them towards the top would have $4,000 or $5,000 steps. And instead of leaving it on the salary schedule so that that was an increase that would inform performance pay, they took it off of the salary schedule. The salary schedule would have uniform increases all the way up the grandfather schedule, but you would have this longevity supplement on the side so that the grandfather teachers were not negatively impacted. And this was especially true in Clay. Evaluation instruments, we worked hard to have an evaluation instrument that recognizes and rewards teachers and rather than punish them, because in Clay, this is an A district, you have the vast majority of the schools in Clay County are A schools, so it makes sense that you would have the vast majority of your teachers be highly effective. And the design of the evaluation instrument of the CAS system was to reward that, to recognize and reward that. Some districts aimed for a more bell-shaped curve where there were mostly effective teachers, a handful of highly effective, and a handful of needs improvement and unsatisfactory teachers, but not in Clay. The Clay way has always been to do what's best for kids and teachers, and the evaluation system here is no different. Not to be outdone, the state came up with great ideas like the best and brightest bonus schemes. And this just picked winners and losers. The first few years it was based on SAT and ACT scores, but was only for classroom teachers. What a test that you took in high school had to do with what kind of a teacher you were. Really, really bad idea. But that was one of the state's solutions. Then they outlawed any attempt by a district to provide job security for annual contract teachers. We talked about that a few minutes ago. The districts across the state, most of them came up with plans that would allow a highly effective or effective teacher to receive an automatic renewal for the next year. And the state came up with a law that said, no, you can't do that either. My personal favorite was a few years back, I think 8 or 10 years ago, the governor, it was Governor Scott at the time, announced a $2,000 pay increase for teachers. But, a lot of times what our elected leaders say and what ends up happening don't match. And if you will remember, this $2,000 pay increase was only for classroom teachers. So it excluded our guidance counselors, media specialists, reading coaches, academic coaches, all those folks. And it wasn't fully funded. So it ended up being somewhere around $1,200 to $1,400 per teacher. So then let's go ahead and skip ahead to 2019, 2020, after all those years of different schemes. And, we've been doing performance pay for 8 years now, getting lots of infusions of cash and all these great rules, best and brightest and all that. Hopefully things are looking up. Well, Florida's average teacher salary did go up a little bit to $50,232, but we slid down 10 spots to 49th in the nation. So the state has another great idea, the teacher salary increase allocation. And with this, we have great benefits for Florida teachers, like salary compression. In Clay now, we are compressed 0 to 17 years, making the same salary. So brand new teachers, or if you've been here 17 years, you are making the same salary. There's an experience penalty for veteran teachers that I'm going to get into in a little more detail a little later. And the TSIA, again, included classroom teachers, and it completely disrespected the roles of guidance counselors, media specialists, academic coaches, pre-K teachers, and other non-classroom teachers. So if you were not in a classroom with students assigned to you, you were not a classroom teacher and were not included under the TSIA. All of these wonderful benefits lead to massive teacher shortage, and my favorite, crushingly low morale. So here are the nuts and bolts of the teacher salary increase allocation for the first year. In 2020, the Florida legislature and Governor DeSantis approved a budget that included $500 million new dollars for teacher salary increases. It sounded like a good idea. I mean, $500 million is quite a chunk, but as always, there's that little devil in the details. So the funds were earmarked to raise starting salary of classroom teachers only, with a goal of reaching 47,500. 80% of the money given to each district had to go to the base salary, whatever the lowest salary was. That had to go to 80% of that money had to go to the teachers that were under 47.5, classroom teachers under 47.5. The other 20% could go to other teachers and those making over 47.5. So unions and districts are scrambling to figure this out, negotiate raises for non-classroom and veteran teachers. In Clay, we did use general fund money to make sure that the non-classroom teachers were not left out. They received the same raises as their colleagues. But the result was we had to compress the first 15 years of our salary schedule. And first year teachers were seeing raises of around $6,000. And we negotiated a raise for our veterans of $1,200. So that was the maximum raise for the veterans was $1,200. But anybody under that 47.5, anywhere up to $6,000. And I want to say that in Clay County and across the state of Florida, we absolutely need to and needed to at the time address beginning teacher salaries because they have been low across the state historically. There is not any member of the district's bargaining team. There is not any member of the Clay bargaining team, of the union's bargaining team, that believes that our new teachers did not deserve the raises that they got. Our heartburn is that we were prohibited from doing more for our veteran teachers, both in the way the money was divided and actually, the financial feasibility of doing it, and that it was so uneven. We absolutely support our new teachers. We think every single one of you is worth more than you will ever be paid. But this particular situation is so completely unfair for anyone who has had a long history of service to Florida students and Clay students in particular. So first year, we compressed the first 15 years of the salary schedule, got $6,000 increases for new teachers and $1,200 for veterans. And then here comes year two, the sequel no one asked for. So in 2021, the Florida legislature and Governor DeSantis increased the TSIA to $550 million for teacher salary increases. So that was an increase of $50 million. The other $500 million was for maintenance of what we had done the year before. The percentage hadn't changed. 80% of the money still has to go to the classroom teachers that were making under 47.5, and the other 20% could go to other teachers and those making over 47.5. A new rule was that any salary increase for teachers making more than 47.5 had to result in 150% increase for teachers making below the base. And so this gets kind of muddy. So I want to go slow and really try to help you understand it, because this is where things get tricky. So if we got an increase, if we negotiated an increase in Clay for veteran teachers to get $1,000, then anybody that was making below 47.5 would have to get a $1,500 increase. So if someone who's been here for 20 years gets $1,000, someone who just got here in August is going to have to get $1,500. Once a district reached the 47,500 as their base, we were supposed to be able to have more flexibility to negotiate increases for all. And in Clay, we reached an agreement with the district to go ahead and get 47.5 for the base. We went ahead and bit the bullet. And we asked our veteran teachers to take a lump for us, take a hit for us. And instead of any salary increase, because we did not want to trigger the 150%, remember, whatever we give a veteran teacher, we have to give our base 150% of that. So we asked our veteran teachers to take a bonus of $3,000. And that ended up compressing the 17-year band at the beginning of the schedule. So from 0 now to 17 years, all those teachers with 0 to 17 years experience make the same amount. And that was necessary according to the law last year. But we hoped and planned, and the board agreed that whatever it took, we were going to address that compression this year, and we were going to continue to work on getting fair increases for veterans as well, now that we had reached the goal that Tallahassee had set for us. So let's look at where all of this ended for us for 21-22. So even with that $500+ million infusion of cash, our average teacher salary fell about $500 to $49,583 as our veterans fled the system that was administering an experience penalty. And we still are near the bottom in the nation for average teacher salary, ranking 48th. Beginning teacher salary is certainly higher than that, but our average teacher salary, which reflects teachers across their careers, still ranks at 48th. So it's time to get started on bargaining for the 22-23 school year, working on the budgets. And just like Bernie, we're once again asking for more money. So 2022, where are we now? If you'll remember, the governor came to Fleming Island Elementary and made a statement in our library there that the districts were going to have the TSIA money, which was targeted to raising base teacher pay and getting that up higher, but that we would have flexibility to do raises for veterans as well, because they were going to give us money in the BSA. And so we were looking forward to that. And so now you'll see, where are we now? You see the little devil still hanging out there, right? So there's still some details to worry about. So for this year in 2022, the Florida legislature and Governor DeSantis increased the TSIA to $800 million for teacher salary increases. It's the biggest increase in education funding in Florida history. You're going to hear that on television, and that is absolutely true. But unfortunately, their devil is still hanging out in the details. This year, the split moved from 80-20 to 50-50, seemingly giving us more flexibility to use those funds for raises for veteran teachers. But now it used to be that the 80% had to go to people making below the base. Now 50% of the money has to be used to increase the base. So our base is $47,500, and everybody is on it from 0 to 17 years. 50% of the money that we got from Tallahassee has to go to increasing the base. And the base has to be increased by 75% of the largest adjustment negotiated for any teacher above the base. So if any teacher above the base receives a raise of $2,000, we have to increase the base by $1,500. So we're still tied. We don't have nearly the flexibility that we thought we were going to have, and that base has to keep coming up. Another law that changed this year was about the longevity supplements. And we talked about that a little earlier, that a lot of districts took the longevity supplements off of the salary schedule to make the steps even, but keep from penalizing our veteran teachers. Well, now any supplement that is awarded to teachers based on years of experience has to be included in the salary adjustment. So if you get a base raise of $1,000 to the salary and a longevity supplement of $1,000, that means that's a $2,000 adjustment, and the base has to come up by $1,500. So getting rid of a lot of the flexibility that we have tried over the years to build into the system. And performance pay has tightened down. Used to be, the language said, if you remember from earlier in this presentation, that the annual contract highly effective teachers had to make more than the professional services contract teachers as far as the raises had to be more than that. Well, now it has to be 125% of any adjustment. So if I negotiate a $1,000 raise for our annual, if I negotiate $1,000 raise for our grandfathered salary schedules, those on PSC, then that means it's $1,250 for a highly effective annual contract teacher. So two teachers teaching right next door to each other with the same highly effective rating, the less experienced teacher, if she or he is on an annual contract, and the veteran teacher next door on a professional services contract, the less experienced teacher has to get 125% of the more experienced teachers' raise. And then for effective teachers, they receive 50 to 75% of the highly effective teachers increase. That hasn't changed. That language remains the same. So here's an example settlement. And I want to say very clearly that these numbers are not the numbers that we are talking about in bargaining. They're just nice round numbers that are easy to see. If a highly effective annual contract teacher gets $125, our PSC teacher, our grandfather teacher, can only get $100. And our effective annual contract teachers could get between $62.50 and $93.75. And the base has to come up by $93.75. So as you can see, it's quite limiting as far as what we can do. So I know it's confusing. If you need to, you can send questions to us at the office. You can go back and watch this again. Hopefully it will make sense at some point, but I understand it's very confusing. So here are the challenges that we're dealing with in bargaining this year. The first thing is that decompressing that salary schedule for our veteran teachers is going to be nearly impossible due to that 75% rule. The highly effective annual contract teachers must receive larger adjustments than our professional services contract teachers, and not just more like it was in years past. Now it's 125% of that adjustment. And what we know now is that some districts who are further along in the bargaining process than we are had attempted to decompress their schedules, and they've already had their proposals rejected by the state. They were sent back and said, start over, you're not following the law. So we know that they are being very attentive to these settlement proposals, and they're sending back any that don't follow the law. So what happens now? For some of you, by the time you watch this, some of this may have already happened, but the parties are going back to the bargaining table on Monday, September the 19th. And we are hopeful that we will have a settlement on that day. What I want you to know, what your bargaining team wants you to know, is that that settlement is not going to be what you deserve. It is not going to be fair. As you've seen through all these numbers and examples, we cannot bargain around the law to get something that is fair to our veteran teachers. And we understand that that is going to be very, very frustrating. And we don't want your anger to be turned towards your union or the school district in Clay, because these restrictions are coming from Tallahassee, and that is where our attention needs to turn. We really believe, based on a year worth of conversations, that the board and the district bargaining team want to do what's right for all the teachers, but we're restricted by more than 20 laws that now govern our salaries. And so, we are tied down, we're hamstrung as far as what we can do. So what we need from our teachers, from you, our members, is after we settle the contract, we're going to send out a communication that tells you the details. And as I said before, it's not going to be what you deserve. It's not going to reflect the way that the board feels about you. It's not going to reflect the way that the community feels about the work that you do. So we need you first. We're going to need you to support the settlement and vote yes once we've TA'd it. But we need you to come to school board meetings and talk about your experience and what the TSIA has done to you, has done to your colleagues, has done to our profession. And we need you to write and call your legislators and the governor about the damage that this program has done. The only way to change this is to change minds and hearts in Tallahassee. And we do that by telling our stories of teaching the children in our communities and watching our profession be dismantled by these wrong-headed legislations. You deserve better than you're getting. And in case no one told you today, Clay County is a great, great school district. And every single one of you are great teachers who lead children in a way that leads them to success, that leads them out of socioeconomic situations, leads them to better lives. And it's all about the teachers in the classroom. And you deserve better than what Tallahassee is dishing out. So please look for settlement agreement information next week. And please reach out if you have any questions. But most of all, please make sure that once we have a settlement, that you are talking to your lawmakers about what the impact of this has been on you. Thank you so much for watching today, and please feel free to share this information. Contact the union office if you need more information. Thanks again. Thanks so much.